Woohoo! Welcome to Unexplained Reality, the podcast about the strange and unexplained but real. We like to hear about and talk about Bigfoot and the Sasquatch. We call them boogers. We also like to talk about dogmen, UFOs, aliens, ghostesses, and pretty much anything that is strange, weird, and unexplained. We'd love to hear from you, and if you've had an experience or an encounter. You can get us on the email at unexplained.reality@yahoo.com. We got the Facebook, the Instagram, the Twitter. Heck, we even got one of them YouTube channels. Yeah, and we got the PayPal, and we got the Patreon. Woo, come and get you some. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Unexplained Reality. I'm Brian Quinn, and I'm running solo tonight. Harrison is off again on another adventure before school starts. He's hanging with his sisters at their houses, so he'll be back next week. So you're stuck with me again. But things will be getting back to normal here shortly, because he'll be back in the reality of school and won't have the luxury of laying out every week and finding other cool stuff to do. Hopefully everybody had a good week. Let's see. Tonight we're going to kind of cut straight into it, because it's going to be kind of a long show with the episode. What we're going to talk about tonight. But let's get down to the nitty gritty. If you have an encounter, or have had an experience or a story you'd like to share with us, contact us at unexplained.reality@yahoo.com. We would love to talk to you. We set up an interview, or if you just have a story you want us to share on one of the episodes, that's fine. Or if you have a subject that you would like for us to talk about or do a show on, we'd love to hear that too. We're always open to suggestions. We're always open to your stories, your experiences. We're not, we don't know the answers to any of the stuff that we are talking about and we're interested in. We're just fascinated by the chase, I guess you would say, or the unknown, the unexplained. So feel free to contact us. We actually recommend, we'd love to hear, anything you have to say. We want to talk to us about. You can also hit us on Instagram and Twitter, Facebook. Come join our group, Unexplained Reality. Just hit the button there to request joining, and we'll add you to it. And same thing for Instagram and Twitter. Just like us, follow us, and we'd love to interact with you that way also. So tonight I'm gonna skip the news and kind of go straight into it. There's been a lot of stuff going on in Chicago recently in the past few months, and actually a little bit back further, a couple of years. So when there was a number of incidents that happened. So I thought it would be worthy to just spend an episode talking about the sightings. I'm not sure what is going on, but the sightings and the experiences that people are having, encounters, are pretty consistent. So it's kind of hard to speculate, or try to not know what this is. I mean, and what people are describing is pretty point on for everybody. So it's not like you have, one person saying, "Oh, it's a dog man," the other one's like, "I saw a Sasquatch," and then one of them claimed it was an alien or the Grim Reaper or something crazy like that. So pretty much all the encounters are described as a bat-like humanoid. Some have called it like a Mothman type of entity or creature. So let's just roll into it. This first, I'm gonna go through just the sightings, and some of them will be people's actual accounts. Some will be just a description of what happened. So the first one happened on August 22nd, 2011. This happened on 63rd and Pulaski Street in Chicago. It says a couple visiting Chicago in August of 2011 decided to visit their old neighborhood. They specifically wanted to check out an area where a local business had a large Native American Indian statue on the roof. I can't remember the name of that establishment, but it's pretty well known for that area. They snapped a few pics of the statue with their cell phones, and after reviewing the pictures at a later time, they realized that there was something in the air behind the statue. And not believing that there was an airplane in the air at the time of the picture, they decided to zoom in on the picture, and as they did, they realized that the object appeared to be to have webbed wings similar to a bat. So there's some pictures of this zoomed in image that you can find online, and it is very interesting, and it's definitely not a typical airplane. Let me just put it that way. If it is some kind of flying plane or something like that, it might be like Batman's airplane or something. It's not a typical standard traditional airplane shape. I guess that's the best way to put it. So I also went into, took the liberty to check Google Maps and check that area out, zoomed in, looked around. And it was interesting to note that there are no high-rise buildings in that area. It's maybe 3-4 story buildings, but nothing really spectacularly huge, It's kind of outskirts so it's not downtown Chicago proper. So the chances of this being something like gliding, like a hang glider, or somebody in a one of those glider suits or whatever, I don't think that could happen because there's nothing with enough elevation for them to be able to launch from. So whatever this was had to be flying on its own power, I think. It's also interesting to note that in close vicinity to this area, though, is Chicago Midway International Airport. But as I said, you look at the zoomed-in picture that these people took, and it doesn't resemble any known aircraft that I've ever seen. So it's interesting account. The next one happened just a month later. This happened on September 30th, 2011. This was in Miller Park. It was a large bat-like humanoid with glowing orange eyes. So it says this happened in Miller Park, around the University Park neighborhood in Chicago. It's approximately 1 block from the University of Illinois Chicago main campus. 2 females were sharing an apartment, and they were getting ready for a usual night out with friends. They were in the process of getting themselves together when one of the roommates screamed. The other roommate dropped what she was doing and ran into the room where the friend was at that was screaming. She found her cowering in a corner in just utter fear. She took her friend into the living room and tried to calm her down. And when she got her settled down, she got her to explain exactly what happened. And her friend told her she was getting ready. When she walked over to look into her mirror, she noticed something staring in from the window at her. It was a set of large orange eyes, glowing orange eyes. After the eyes stared at her for a few seconds, the eyes disappeared. She returned to her room to put on the one that was consoling her friend. She went back to her room to put on a robe because she had just been wearing. She was in her underwear. She was getting ready, and she just reacted when she heard the scream. So her friend was so freaked out by what happened that her friend wouldn't let her go into the room to put on a robe. Leave her in the living room. So she went with her into the room to put on a robe. And not long after, that, her phone rang in her room. So she had to leave her friend momentarily. Her friend had calmed down a little bit by then. She ran into her room, grabbed her phone, came back. And on her way back, she looked into her friend's room and saw red glowing eyes staring in from the window. She was on the phone, as I said. She had answered the phone in the process while all this was happening, and it was her boyfriend, and he was talking like a mile a minute. He was just jabbering on. Well, that's about the time she saw in her friend, as she was passing by her friend's room, she saw the eyes staring back at her, and she freaked out, screamed. Her boyfriend panicked, didn't know what was going on, and within a couple of minutes, the boyfriend was there with a friend of his. They showed up at the apartment of the girls, and after getting the girls calmed down and hearing what they had to say, they told of their own encounter. So that as they were walking to get the girls to go out for the evening, they witnessed a large humanoid bat-like figure with glowing red eyes standing on top of a basketball goal at a park close to the girls' apartment. The guys witnessed the creature for a few seconds before the creature took off with a loud swoosh, they said. It was also witnessed by approximately 6 people. That's when the boyfriend called his girlfriend, and he was rambling on about it, and she screamed, and that's when they sprinted the remaining block or so to the girls' apartment. After settling the girls and talking to them about what happened, both claimed to have had a feeling of immense dread and fear during their sightings. So both of the girls and the guys, and they claimed that they felt they were, whatever was staring at them, that they were the prey of that thing, that it was wanting to prey on them. So that was, I'm sure, a very frightening thing. Anything staring back at you from the dark, like that outside your window, would be just super creepy. So our next story comes, our next encounter is also from 2011. It's from October 14th, 2011, in the Washington Park area near the University of Chicago. This one is an actual statement from the eyewitness. It says, "I am currently attending University of Chicago, Illinois, and I wanted to respond to the informational flyers about recent events involving the large bat-like creatures. I was enjoying evening with my girlfriend and taking a well-deserved break from my studies. We decided to go out and enjoy the unusually warm weather that we were having and go for a walk. As we walked toward a community park near the campus, we were talking about our classes when a commotion amongst a group of people caught our attention. As we looked toward the group of about 4 to 5 people, something caught my eye and I looked up to see this thing fly overhead. It looked like a man. It looked like a man with wings. He flew about 10 to 12 feet above us and was perfectly silhouetted against the evening sky. In all honesty, it looked like an immensely oversized sugar glider, the kind I would see back home in Tasmania. It had the rough shape of a sugar glider, but its eyes were nothing like the soft eyes of a glider. They glowed red. We saw it for about 4 seconds before it disappeared from view. At first, I thought I saw a man in a hang glider, but It was those bloody eyes that made me think otherwise. I at first thought of ringing someone, but I didn't want them to think I had gone crazy. To say that I was gobsmacked would have been an understatement. So, another interesting one. I thought it was interesting how he referred to it as like a sugar glider, because the picture I talked about in the first incident, that's kind of what that picture looks like with the winged, the webbed wings and stuff. So, very interesting. The next one goes forward a few years to 2016. This is August 2016, and I don't have an exact date here. It doesn't look like. This was near West Roosevelt Road and South 59th Avenue. This witness describes the creature he encountered as being 7 foot tall, standing on human-like legs, and having a 10-foot wingspan. And the quote from the eyewitness is, "Last summer, I believe in early August 2016, on my commute home, I got off the bus and started walking about a block and a half near West Roosevelt Road and South 59th Avenue in Cicero. It was a warm night, and I could hear and see all the usual things happening. It wasn't unusual for me to see bats flying around and landing in or on a chimney. But this night, something caught the corner of my eye. I figured it was just another bat, and I really didn't pay it much attention. Then it happened again. But then I had this eerie feeling coming over me, like something was watching, and again I saw something swoop by, near an opening approximately 15 feet above me, and about 10 feet to the right of me, as I was facing south. As I turned my head upward, I looked at the street light that was across the street. I thought I saw something perched on top of it. I thought my mind was playing tricks on me. I started to squint to try to focus more on what I thought was on top of the street light, and I couldn't see it too well because the light was in my eyes. It was only when I raised my hand to partially block the light and I could see clearly there was something perched on the street light that was very large in size. When I was finally able to see it better, it stood up. As I was stricken with fear and curiosity at the same time, I was able to see that its head came to a point with red amber glowing eyes. It flapped its wings twice and was airborne and took off towards the north. This is the first time we mentioned any of this to anybody. But when I read the article about other people seeing the same thing, I had that feeling of fear and curiosity come over me again, and I felt compelled to tell my story. I lost a lot of sleep over it, trying to reconcile in my mind what I saw. It real, and when I came across the post, I got flashback of what happened last year. Yeah, I can see how that would happen. I mean, it's interesting to me that a lot of these encounters are, they're witnessing this creature standing on top of a light post. So it makes you wonder, how strong are light posts? I wouldn't think they'd be incredibly strong. I wouldn't think, a human could stand on top of it, so I would think it's lighter than a human. But it's from a lot of these descriptions is fairly large creature. I mean, many of them claim it's 7 feet tall with like a 12-foot wingspan. That's pretty big. So anyways, this next one is February 8th, 2017. And this is kind of where things ramp up. And 2017 is really into 2016, but mainly in 2017, we've seen a lot of stuff happening. And especially over the past month or two. So this one's from February 8th, 2017. It's approximately 1 a.m. in the morning. This is Chicago Ridge area. It's southbound on I-294, it says. A man was driving home on I-294 when something ran across the highway on 2 legs. The creature then turned into a blackbird and flew away. He stated that it was a giant blackbird and it flew up and away. He claimed it was the biggest bird he had ever seen and that it flew away with long legs. So I don't know, he doesn't really say it was human legs, but it kind of makes you wonder. He said it was long legs, so it kind of makes you think that that's maybe what it was. Let's see. This next one is March 22nd, 2017. This is in Cicero, Illinois. And we saw a couple back that there was one from Cicero also. This is at Cicero Avenue and 290 Expressway. And this one comes from singular14.com and phantomsandmonsters.com. The eyewitness says, "My name is Billy B. I drive a semi with a large carrier company in Chicago. On March 22nd, I was at Rosen's Alpha Baking on Cicero Avenue and 290 Expressway in Chicago. I was picking up a load of bread there. I noticed a flying object at around noon in the airspace to the south coming from Midway Airport." Now, Midway is also where I believe, where the first sighting happened that I reported on, which was in 2011, where the large Indian right there, where they were taking a picture and it was flying behind them. That's where Midway, I believe, is close to this. This is like the same area. So it says the object looked like a man with wings, like Batman. I thought it was an experimental drone or secret government military test after seeing the picture by the Indian statue. That's the one from August 22nd, 2011 at 63rd and Pulaski Street, or Pulaski Road in Chicago. And I'm convinced it was the thing these other folks have seen. I have three witnesses for that day and the text to prove it happened. I absolutely swear it was this Mothman. So he specifically states this was Mothman. The object was gliding over me and disappeared in the clouds. It is very loud by the expressway, and I have had no recollection of screaming. Shortly after I saw this thing, I had a litany of strange health problems that are documented. My eyes are even messed up, like the movie and other claims. I have all the documentation to prove my story. I hope I'm not considered a freak after this, but this sighting can be proven well before the other sightings were reported. I have nothing to gain by reporting this, so call me if you have questions. The health issues are very odd and serious. I have had several MRI tests and a lumbar puncture due to the pressure behind my eyes. Now these issues could be due to some other disease that has no diagnosis." And it goes on to say, according to Lon Strickler of Phantom and Monsters, who contacted the witness by phone, the creature was the size of a large automobile, is the way the guy described it. And its description matched that of the flying humanoid reported back in 2011 in the same area. Billy B. has forwarded documentation proving the bizarre medical problems he has endured since the sighting. This is from Lon Strickler. Eventually traced to a rare condition in his eyes. As well, he forwarded documentation on his mother's death, which occurred unexpectedly approximately 3 weeks ago. I have no proof that these incidents are related to the sighting, but it is noteworthy nonetheless and part of the record, said Strickler. Billy was very forthcoming and answered all my questions without embellishment. I truly believe he witnessed what he described, which he believes was a winged living being because of the way the figure naturally moved. So it was interesting. It was crazy. Let's see. All right. This one is from April 7th, 2017 in Oz Park, which is Lincoln Park neighborhood. It says Chicago, Illinois. This was a nighttime sighting in another urban Chicago setting in the Lincoln Park neighborhood. The witness claims to have been stared at for about 15 seconds by a giant half-man, half-bird creature. The witness statement states, I live in Lincoln Park neighborhood in the city of Chicago and live about 1.5 blocks from Oz Park. When the weather is nice, I usually go outdoors and to the park to jog and walk my dog. The night of April 7th was no different. It was mild and the cold weather had finally subsided, so I decided to give the treadmill a break and go outside to jog and let the dog get some fresh air. As I came to the corner of Burling Street and Webster Avenue, where I crossed the street to the park, my dog began acting very peculiar and acted like she didn't want to go to the park. This is very strange, as usually my dog goes absolutely nuts when we go to the park and has the time of her life running and sniffing. On this particular evening, she acted like she was mortified to cross the street and enter the park. As we crossed the street and came up to the area where the basketball courts are located and start of the trail that goes around and through the park, my dog was practically being dragged as she resisted wanting to continue. After much effort, I finally got her to cooperate and begin the walk. I started walking east toward the Oz Garden, a route that is my usual when I come here to walk or to jog. As we walked toward the garden, I noticed that many of the birds you usually hear in the park were all but silent, and that the only noise you could hear was the usual city noise from the surrounding neighborhood. As we rounded the sidewalk to head south with the garden to my left, I heard what could only be described as the flapping of wings. I really didn't give it a second thought, as I assumed it would be some passing Canadian geese that I've seen in the park recently. As we came toward the clearing where you would find the baseball fields, something caught my eye, and what I saw still scares the crap out of me. I saw a large man, probably 7 feet or taller, standing on the ground. It was solid black, but what really stood out were the large, and I do mean large, pair of wings that were folded behind him. These wings stood taller than the man, by at least 1.5 feet, and jutted out in his back. I could not see its face, as it had its face turned away from me and probably didn't notice me at first. It finally turned and noticed me, and I saw the bright ruby red eyes that appeared to glow from within. It was at this time that it turned and faced me, and I got to see what it really looked like. It was about 7 feet tall, and instead of clothes, it looked like a giant half-man, half-bird kind of thing. It reminded me of the character Bird Person from the show Rick and Morty, only a lot scarier. This thing stared at me for about 15 seconds, which felt like an eternity, and then in a loud whoosh, it unfurled its wings and screeched really loud and jutted into the air. These wings looked almost bat-like and were about 10 feet across from tip to tip. I felt like this thing could see right through me, read me. It knew what I was thinking, like it could stare right into my very soul. It was the most terrified I have ever been in my life. It rose into the air like a bullet, and I heard it screech once more before losing it from my view as it rose above the trees and possibly the buildings. It was at that time that I realized that I had yet to scream or react in any way. I was just numb from head to my toes. I finished my walk early and walked home, all the while trying to see if I could see it again once I got to the street. It was the scariest thing I've ever experienced, and it led me to look up giant mutant birds online, and eventually came to sites talking about similar sightings that other people have had, and eventually to where I could post and report my own sighting. I don't want you to think that I am crazy. I'm just a normal person who had a weird and strange experience. I do not abuse drugs or take any kind of hallucinogens or anything like that. I know what I saw was real, and that I saw it in Oz Park in Chicago, Illinois. I don't want publicity at all. I just want to tell my story and to warn others who might jog or walk the trails of Oz Park. I never felt like I was in any real kind of danger if I did not provoke it. But I felt that this creature could have ripped me limb for limb if I had approached it or threatened in any way. Maybe it was my passing through like the Canadian geese do when they are migrating. Either way, I hope that we never get to meet face to face again. Well, that's, it's a terrifying experience. I can't imagine going through something like that. But what I can't imagine also is that, okay, well, I just saw this terrifying thing and I'm going to go ahead and finish my part. And I couldn't do that. I don't think I'd be out of there. But people have different reactions to different experiences. So, it's very interesting. This next one comes from Lake Michigan. This was on April 15th, 2017. The sighting took place from a boat on Lake Michigan, and it was witnessed by multiple people. The witness statement states, "We were about two miles out on the lake, just off Montrose, at about 10 p.m. We were enjoying ourselves when I happened to look up and saw what looked like a giant bat, and not like a fox bat, which I looked up and saw was the biggest bat. This bat was as tall as my husband, who is 6 foot 4 inches, or bigger. It was solid black with eyes that seemed to reflect the moonlight. This bat was blacker than the surrounding night sky and was perfectly silhouetted against the moonlit sky. This bat circled the boat 3 times in complete silence before heading off towards Montrose. It quickly blended into the night sky and was gone in seconds. A bright green object traveling north to south at the horizon was seen about 5 minutes after the creature flew off. It was not a plane, as it was brilliant green and was moving slowly across the horizon. If I had to estimate, it was about 2 miles from our position. After the object was out of sight, we sat there looking around in stunned silence. I began feeling this overwhelming sensation of dread and told my husband that I felt that it was prudent that we get off of the water as quickly as possible. I tried to get a picture of the thing as it circled our boat, but all I got was black." Wow. That's another good one, and it's interesting that the green light coming, it might be just coincidental, but it is interesting that they had the sighting of this winged creature, large winged creature, and then, had the sighting of the green light, and that's just, and being out on open water like that. So it's not like you're 2 miles out in the lake. That's a substantial different a distance when you're on water. So that's not an easy feat, and for something to be flying like that, but not having something to perch on, nearby. Very interesting sighting. All right, so this next encounter happened on April 15th, 2017. So you see, we're only getting, just days. Some of these sightings are like happen at the same time. It's very interesting. So this one's from April 15th, 2017, 30 minutes after the previous sighting. This witness states the following about the sighting. Hanging out with my boys and a few friends in Chicago at the time of the sighting. As we talked about work and our families, we heard what sounded like a bird flapping its wings, the witness stated. One of my homies yelled out that he saw a huge lechuza over by the road. In Mexican folklore, lechuza is an old woman, often a witch or bruja, who can turn into a giant blackbird. In most stories, the bird is an owl, but sometimes it is described as an eagle. We walked over there and saw what looked like a big owl. As we walked up on it, this owl stood up on 2 feet and looked right at us. We saw what looked like a huge lechuza, except it was about 6 feet tall and really big. It had large glowing red eyes that were completely freaking everybody out. We all yelled, and this thing took off into the air and took off toward North Avenue. This thing freaked us all out and scared all our kids. It's interesting, all these sightings. We're getting them from different walks of life too. So that add some credence or provide some credence to these stories. You know, you have so many sightings that are basically saying the same thing, and then you have from different walks of life, you know. So to me, that adds legitimacy to these stories. They're seeing something, there's no doubt. April 16th, 2017 says next day, Chicago International Produce Market about 2 a.m. So actually, it's just a few hours after the previous sightings, because this is 2 a.m. on the 16th. The other one just happened at 10:30 on the 15th, and the one before that, like 10 p.m. on the 15th. So we got 3 sightings back to back right here, just hours apart. The witness account states, I arrived for work at 2 a.m. at the Chicago International Produce Market just off Damon, and as I walked across the parking lot, a bunch of guys, 4 to 5, were staring up at the sky, the witness stated. I looked up and saw the biggest freaking owl I've ever seen. I'm 6 foot 2 inches, and I'm guessing this thing was at least a foot taller than me. It was completely black except for it having bright yellowish reddish eyes like a cat. It stood there for a minute or two staring at everyone before shooting up into the sky and disappearing. It made everyone feel very uneasy and only took off after some guys threw some rocks at it. It had wings on it like an owl, only bigger, and you could hear it flap those wings when it took off. It made this sound as it took off and flew away that sounded like a truck's brakes when they are burned out. It flew up and flew a wide circle, making that sound once more, and then flew off in the direction of the Stevenson Expressway. We stood around and looked for it for a few minutes, but it never came back. I'm reporting this because there's no way this was an owl. It stood upright like a man, just really, really tall. I don't want to discuss this with anyone and would prefer to remain anonymous. I don't imagine anyone would believe me anyways. One of the guys I worked with who saw this thing said that it made him feel very uneasy, like a scared kid, and he was glad someone threw a rock and made it fly away. So there again, we have people that are having like a sense of dread or uneasiness. So, I mean, you have that with other sightings too. It's not just, in these instances, you have people who claim to see witness Bigfoot, Sasquatch, that they get that uneasiness feeling. People that have dogman encounters, same thing. So it's crazy. The next one is a week or two later, week and a half later. This is on April 27th, 2017. This is at the Little Calumet River near West 130th Street in Chicago, Illinois. This was a man and his son who were fishing on the Little Calumet River who had this encounter, and it was approximately 7:30 p.m. on that night. And they say, I was out with my son by the banks of the Little Calumet on the northwestern side of Hedgewish Park at a spot where we have had some success catching fish in the past. It is located by the trestle bridge that runs east to west over near 130th Street. It's a spot that takes a little effort to get to, but it has had some payoffs in catching some medium-sized catfish. It was about 7:30 p.m. and we were packing up our gear when we heard something that sounded like train brakes when the train's slowing down. The problem was there was no train going by at the moment. When the train goes by, you usually feel it going by. You also hear it as it's pretty loud. On this day, it was quiet with the occasional sound of trucks or cars going about. We heard the sound again and saw something fly from our left toward some trees on the other side of the river. We thought it looked like a giant bird, but it was solid black. Within a minute, we heard the sound again, and this thing straight up and over the trestle bridge and headed off down the river. This thing was unlike any bird we have seen in our lives. It was solid black and had to be about the size of a full-grown man. It had wings that must have been 10 feet from tip to tip. It flew up and out of sight within seconds. We really couldn't get many details as this thing flew like a literal bat out of hell and was still on the other side of the river. We stood there and watched it fly away. I was just blown away, but then my son piped up and said he had read about some giant bat sightings that have occurred in Chicago lately. Maybe this was one of them. We packed up our gear and got the hell out of there as fast as we could. We didn't want this thing to come back and see us there, as we were not supposed to be there fishing in the first place. Later that night, my son showed me the websites where the reports were listed, and that led me to report this sighting. I'm sorry that I couldn't give you more details on this thing, but frankly, I thank my lucky stars that we weren't close enough to see any details. So there again, you have a number of witnesses up to this point claiming to have heard like brakes. Some said semi. This guy says a train. So it's making some kind of screeching or loud noise in a lot of cases where this thing is seen. And, once again, you're hearing that it was man-sized. So it's a big critter, whatever it is. All right, this next one is from the same area. This is Calumet Park, and this was on May 5th, 2017. The sighting occurred in Calumet Park neighborhood in Chicago. Calumet Park is a lakeside park. It is very popular for various outdoor activities like biking, jogging, rollerblading, etc. The witnesses were a law enforcement officer and his 10-year-old son. So here we have as I stated before, we have different backgrounds, different cultural background. I don't know, different jobs. So it's people from different walks of life, basically. And so now we have a law enforcement officer who's, taking an oath to uphold laws and speak the truth, So not somebody you would expect to make something up. And at this point, we've had so many witnesses and so many encounters that, it's hard to fathom that this is some fabrication. They were out for a walk when the encounter occurred. This is how they described it, their sighting. He says, I was out with my son at Calumet Park at about 8 p.m. walking the trail, as we have since he was about 6 years old. We were talking about what was going on within our lives and about what our plans were for the upcoming summer. As we walked towards the field house, we were overflown by what I thought was a large goose, as we have seen multiple geese flying around the city and suburbs within the last couple of months. As we watched, it quickly became apparent that this was not a goose, but something much bigger. I can describe it as a large bat, but it had a distinct human figure, about 6 feet in height per my estimates. It was blackish gray in color and had an enormous pair of wings that must have been 8 to 10 feet in width. My son was in complete shock and asked me what that thing was. My response was an equally surprised, I don't know. This bat flew up and over the field house and toward where the tennis courts would be. I heard a couple yell out in surprise as this bat flew up and over the field house and out of view. The entire encounter lasted about 30 to 35 seconds from the initial sighting to it flying up and over the field house and out of sight. I estimated the speed of this bat to be at least 40 to 50 miles per hour and it to be at least 15 to 20 feet above us, as it was just over the top of the street lights. It was dusk, but the sun had just started to set, so there was enough light to still get a good view of the object as it flew overhead. I was only able to get a general description as it flew over us at that speed and prohibited from getting any finer details of it. We went around the field house and tried to see if we could see anything on the other side, but did not get any other views of this creature. The rest of the evening went without incident, and I only decided to report this after reading some reports of similar sightings within the city online. So, now we have a law enforcement officer who has witnessed this with his 10-year-old son. That's a pretty good witness. And that was a very good encounter. Most of these encounters are very good. They're a good few seconds. This one was 35 seconds long, so that's a pretty substantial amount of time for seeing a creature or cryptid like this. You don't usually get that much time. So this next one happened May 19th, 2017, so just a few days later. This is in downtown Chicago, also along the river. So it was approximately 9 p.m. and this is what the witness states. I was out with my daughter and mother celebrating my daughter's recent graduation and after dinner and some light shopping. I was out with my daughter and mother celebrating my daughter's recent graduation, and after dinner and some light shopping, we decided to go out and check out the newly opened Chicago Riverwalk that had just opened after construction. We accessed the Riverwalk via the entrance on Michigan Avenue and walked east toward the lake, looking at the sights and enjoying the beautiful view. As we passed under the Columbus Drive Bridge, we heard this strange sound, and my daughter said, "Look at that." As we looked up, we saw a large winged person flying just above the water and then pulling up and going over the bridge. It looked like a huge owl or even a bat, but completely black with the exception of two large eyes that appeared red. I'm not sure if it was the actual color of its eyes or just the light reflecting off of them. Either way, it looked very spooky. We watched it go over the bridge and then continue flying right above the water and out of sight. It didn't seem to care if anyone else saw it. It just let flying above the water until it was out of sight. I'm guessing that should have said kept flying. My daughter and me tried to get pictures of it, but by the time we took pictures, all we got were blurry images of mostly black. My daughter did sketch what she saw, and I have included it in this email. We have never seen anything like this before. It never flapped its wings while we were in sight. At first glance, it looked like a person in a wingsuit, but I don't think anyone would be suicidal enough to go for a stunt like that along the waterfront. I've gone skydiving before and have seen demonstrations of wingsuits in the past. This led me to rule out that this would be a person in one of those suits or anything similar, as it would be a surefire recipe for disaster. This thing also had wings that did seem like the wings on a bat, as it seemed to form one big wing from back to the bottom of the legs and seemed more of a membrane than feathered wings like an owl. There was no sound at all, just an audible swoosh as it flew over. It was up and over the bridge in a matter of seconds, and then it was gone. We were a bit shaken up after this thing flew away. She didn't know what it was that we had seen. So that was a good, you have a good couple witnesses there. So it's just, man, I don't know. There's some crazy stuff going on up there. Next one is, let's see, when did this one happen? May 19th. So this next one happened May 27th, so a few days later. At Calumet Park, a married couple were near the intersection of North Wrightwood Avenue and North Lakeview when they witnessed a large black bat-like creature with glowing red eyes. So Same MO. Alright, so the next one happened on June 3rd, 2017, Lincoln Park, community of Chicago. Specifically 400 block of North Arlington Place between North Clark Street and North Lakeview Avenue. We've heard Lakeview Avenue in a previous sighting also. This sighting happened at 10 p.m. Central Time, and that's a good thing to note here. All of these sightings are Central Time because Chicago is in the Central Time Zone. It happened on Saturday, June 3rd, 2017. A couple walking on 400 block of North Arlington Place noticed something flying low overhead. The creature was illuminated by the street light enough to recognize it as being 7 to 8 feet and being a solid black humanoid. It had at least a 12-foot wingspan that seemed to have membranes like the wings of a bat. There were no visible legs, and the rear of the body tapered to a point. The witness in this encounter also felt a sense of foreboding, and they were terrified as the creature glided silently down the length of the street and then ascended into the sky and blended with the night. So again, we have the membrane wings, so bat-like wings, dead on with the size, 7 to 8 feet. We've heard 6 to 7 to 8 feet. Most are 7 to 8 foot range. 12-foot wingspan. We heard 10 to 12-foot wingspan on most of these that have referenced that. So they said no visible legs, but if they were tucked up, you're not going to see them. Probably. It depends on. I mean, they said they had some light from the street light, but that very easily could have been just missed if you didn't have quite enough to catch it. And also in this case, you have the foreboding and the sense of utter fear, and you see that on a lot of the previous sightings. So it's an interesting part too. So the next one happened the same day in Lincoln Park. So the witness described the encounter this way. I was walking with my boyfriend in Lincoln Park around 10 p.m. tonight on Saturday, June 3rd, and I saw a huge bat, or what I could only describe as a bat glide past. It was huge and long. I can't explain what it was, but it was not normal. It was pitch black and had no feathers. I thought it was an eagle or a bat, but it was definitely bigger than both of those. Its wings were skin-like, and it made no sound. I called my boyfriend to see it, but by the time he looked, he only saw the tail end of it. We both felt very uneasy and more uneasy after Googling and coming across similar reports. I'm not sure what to make of it, but it was not normal. The wings were longer than my boyfriend's arms, and he's 6 foot. So there again, we have the skin-like wings as she referred to, which is, says to me, membrane type wings. Now she's saying, he had longer wings than her boyfriend's arms, which he's 6 foot. I don't know how long a 6 foot person's arms would be, but longer could be anything longer than that. You don't know. So it's not good description of size there, but it sounds like it was a big, probably, the same type of creature. So anyways, it falls right in line with, other encounters we've seen thus far. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take a few minute break. Let's take about 5 minutes here, give everybody a chance to go just take a break, and we'll get back into some more sightings and encounters here. We still have quite a few that have been going on up to pretty present, just a couple days earlier, from today. So anyways, we'll be back in just a few minutes.
Prepare to confiscate the humans' possessions. Possessions secured. Prepare the probe.
Whoa. Wait a hot second. No need for a probe, man. Why are you doing this anyway?
To learn from your kind. And to obtain your container of treasures.
Container of treasures? Oh, you mean my cryptid crate?
Yes, the cryptid crate you possess. We desire it. We have discovered it to be populated with many objects we find most incredible.
Correct. The objects in this container cannot be produced on our home planet.
Well, you don't have to abduct people to get your own cryptid crate.
Elaborate.
Just go to cryptidcrate.com and sign up. On the first of each month, a new box filled with amazing cryptozoology-themed items will come to your mailbox, or spaceship.
Allow us to show appreciation to you, human, for this invaluable information.
Yeah, sure thing. Does this mean you're going to take me back to Earth?
Not exactly.
So, welcome back to Unexplained Reality. We're talking about the incidents and things that are happening in Chicago with people witnessing a bat-like humanoid creature flying around Chicago. This next sighting comes on June 17th, 2017, near Navy Pier. The sighting happened on Saturday, June 17th, 2017 at about 7 p.m. Central Time near Navy Pier in Chicago. The witness account states, I was out for a late jog on Saturday evening about 7 p.m. and was taking my usual route along the lakefront jogging trail headed toward the Navy Pier. As I passed Ohio Street Beach and headed toward the pier, I saw what looked like a giant bat fly from what I looked like. I don't understand this. I saw what looked like a giant bat fly out from what looked like under the bridge that holds up North Lakeshore Drive. It flew parallel to East Grand Avenue and then up and over the trees toward the water treatment plant. The whole incident only lasted a few seconds, and getting any exact details was hard due to the low light. I can make an educated guess and say that it looked like it was the height of an average man at about 6 foot tall, but also was maybe 15 to 20 feet away from it when I saw it. It looked like a great big bat, solid black, but it stood out against the building and had a wingspan that must have been at least 7 to 8 feet from tip to tip. It was silent as far as I could tell, but there was a lot of city noise in that area with traffic and whatnot. I know I was not the only one who saw it, as about 6 to 7 others noticed it, and I heard more than one person say, "Look at that." As it flew, you could tell it was flapping its large wings, gaining speed and altitude till it cleared the trees and headed off toward the water treatment plant. When I reached the point where I could look out toward the plant, it was gone. I checked my watch at that time and noted the time at 7:08 p.m. and the weather was cloudy. We had storms pass through the area earlier today, and it looked like more were on the way. There was visible lightning over the lake at the time that this incident occurred. I went home after my jog was completed and looked up sightings of giant bats in the city and was shocked at how many there were recently. That is how I got the info on where to report this to you. So, same MO again. This next one happened June 23rd, 2017. This is in the at the Adler Planetarium. Happened about 9:30 p.m. and they state, I want to tell you about a sighting that happened on Friday, the 23rd of June at about 9:30 p.m. by the Adler Planetarium in Chicago, Illinois. My girlfriend and I are spending the weekend in Chicago, and we took a walk around the Adler and Shed Aquarium so she could try to get some more Pokemon. Yes, Pokemon. We were spending our anniversary together downtown and wanted to visit the museum campus. We were at the backside of the Adler Planetarium and had walked along the path toward the food court. We ordered some food and sat down when there was a commotion and a bunch of people were shouting and pointing at the sky. We both got up and went to look what was going on and saw a large black bat-like creature headed away from us. When we asked people what they had seen, we were told that they had seen a large bat. Everyone described it as a large bat-like creature that also had human-like features. What we saw was flying away, from us, but supported what everyone else has seen as looking like a large bat. We hung around for about 30 minutes after that, looking up at the sky, as was everybody else. No one saw or heard anything for the remainder of the time, I guess. It just kind of trailed off. What we saw was flying away from us, remainder of the time that we were there. There was a feeling of uneasiness amongst the people who were there, and many shortly departed right before we did. All right, the next one is, I guess, from a person that was there about the same time at the Adler, because it's the same date, June 23rd, 2017, at the Adler Planetarium. It says, "Good afternoon. I wanted to write in a report a sighting that happened to me and my two friends a week ago along the lake shore of Chicago. We decided to report this after reading your blog about a similar sighting that happened the same night of ours. The events that I'm writing about happened on Friday, June 23rd of 2017 at approximately 10 p.m. I was with a group of friends at Adler Planetarium just hanging out and having fun down by the concession area. We usually hang out at the lakeside because it's fun and you get to meet a lot of girls. This particular night, we were hanging out at our usual table near the taco stand when we saw what had to be the biggest bat we've ever seen. This bat must have been at least 7 feet tall if he was standing up, but again, my perception might be skewed because it was dark and this thing was about 20 feet up in the air. All three of us were like, what the F is that? We all saw it about the same time as it flew over and continued toward the area of Soldier Field. It did this for maybe 20 yards or so, then abruptly changed direction and headed toward the lake and flew out over the lake and out of sight. This thing made no noise and was easily seen by myself and at least a few other people. We were so preoccupied with looking at this flying thing that none of us thought about grabbing our phones and taking pictures, which I regret because I could have posted this on YouTube or Snapchat and had made $1 million. My friend sent me an email with a link about a similar sighting in the same general area on the same night we had ours. That is why I am writing a report our sighting that we had that night. I am more than willing to talk about the sighting as long as my name is not used and my friends who were with me that night are too. Thank you for taking my report and not thinking I am crazy because of what we saw. The one thing that does not fit in with the similar sighting that I saw on your site is there was no feeling of dread or despair, but an overwhelming urge to keep a looking at that creature. But that could have also been morbid curiosity. So, yeah, it's basically we have the same thing here. It was something that I wanted to mention, but just scanning back through it here. It's interesting how it seems to always, fly at a group, swoop over them, and then just change direction and head outbound or shoot straight up in the air, whatever. It's a lot of little clicks about it that are very that fit right in line with all these other sightings. So, all right, this next one's a couple days later, June 29th, 2017, in Auburn Gresham neighborhood. The witness states, I'm going to tell you about something that happened to me on the 29th of June 2017 in Chicago, Illinois. I'm reporting this of my own volition, and I am wanting to stay anonymous due to the fact that I work for the Chicago Police Department and do not want anybody else to know that I submitted this report. I have been with the Chicago Police Department for over 8.5 years. So here we have another police officer, so that's good. The previous one, 2 back, we had somebody that was looking for Pokemon. Then we had what sounded like to be some kids hanging out, looking for girls. And now we have another police officer. So we got, like I said, all walks of life yet again. We have a police officer who is, you usually get a sense of being trustworthy. He says, the only people who know that I submitted this are my wife, my son, who encouraged me to submit this, and my partner, who also was witness to this incident. I want you to know that I am of a sound mind and health, and I don't want any publicity other than just reporting this incident. I also want you to know that I am not prone to fits of fantasy or hoaxing anything that I've seen, especially while I'm on duty. So now we have him and his partner, so we got 2 more cops, basically, that can corroborate. Why can't I speak tonight? Corroborate, this incident. So, on the night of June 29th, 2017, approximately 11:15 p.m., My partner and I were on routine patrol and approaching the intersection of West 81st and South Throop in the Auburn Gresham neighborhood of Chicago, Illinois. We were flagged down by a group of people who were pointing up to the top of an apartment building that was on the corner. We pulled over and they immediately started telling us to look up at the building. Many of the people were very frightened and were very excited about seeing what they had seen. My partner and I look and see a large creature that was approximately 6 to 6.5 feet tall and was very thin. If it had been human, it would have been emaciated. This thing was standing on top of the building and had what looked like a pair of very large wings that extended out at least 8 to 10 feet from tip to tip. No discernible features, it just looked like a dark black shadow with wings. My partner and I both thought it was somebody trying to jump from the building and maybe wearing a costume of some kind. When we both shined our flashlights to try to get a better look at what we were dealing with, this thing took off into the air and flew away. As this creature flew away, headed in a southern direction, something sounding like a scream came from it, and within the matter of about 5 seconds, this creature was gone into the night. The people who initially flagged us down had said that many people in the neighborhood had seen this thing for the previous 2 nights, and this just happened to be the only time that it was seen in a stationary place. We stood there stunned as this thing flew away and disappeared into the night. We stood there and talked to the group of people who flagged us down, taking information down, any information regarding previous sightings from the nights before. We initially were doubtful about filing a report because we thought we would be made fun of for seeing little green men. We finally filed a report as we did not want to violate protocol. Nothing was ever said about the report being filed, and as of right now, it's been business as usual. We wanted to file this report because after I told my son the story, he went online and showed me that this is not the only sighting of something similar being seen in the city. I showed my partner the day after the sightings, and he said that he didn't want to be involved. As far as he was concerned, it was nothing more than a large owl or a big bird that was misidentified. My son, who was the one who encouraged me to file this and do it anonymously to protect my identity. I know what I saw was real, and even though I have no explanation as to what it truly is, I know that what I saw was flesh and blood. I'm a Christian man who believes that there are things that come from other planets and stalk the people of this earth, and that only ones of faith is what protects us from these things. I know that my faith is strong, and therefore I am protected, and I hope that I never see this thing again. Thank you very much for your time, and have a blessed day. So, very interesting encounter from another police officer, basically 2 police officers. So, cool stuff. Alright, so we have another one from Auburn Gresham neighborhood. This was on June 29th, 2017, which I believe is the same night, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. So, this was sent in to Lon Strickler on phantomsandmonsters.com. It says, Mr. Strickler, I hesitate to send this in for 2 reasons. First, I'm still not 100% sure that I believe it myself. And second, I'm trying to be a journalist and I don't want this kind of a report to discredit me for future career opportunities. That's why I'm sending this anonymously, and that's why I'm not interested in following up about any of this. I was talking about this story while drinking with my siblings the other night, and my sister pointed out that it reminded her of some stories she'd seen circulating online. When I looked into it myself, I was surprised to see that my story had already been partially reported earlier this month. On June 29th, I was walking home from getting Wendy's with a small group of friends when one of my friends pointed at a dark shape in a tree on the corner of West 81st and South Throop. The thing was big, but details were hard to make out at night. Then the thing jumped out of the tree and flew onto the roof of an apartment building on the same block. When it flew, I got the chance to see that it was a tall, dark thing with wide wings. Nothing like that Mothman statue that they've got in Point Pleasant. A group of people had started to form on the corner with my friends and me. Then some of the people on the corner whom I hadn't met previously flagged down a cop car to point the thing out. That's when my friends and I quietly slipped away. I'm a transgender woman and I've had my share of bad interactions with the police. My friends felt similarly. I now believe that the officer I saw was the same officer who reported a story about seeing this thing on the same night. I still think it might have had a logical explanation, but I thought there might be others interested in hearing this story and coming to their own conclusions. Thank you. So, obviously, it sounds like the previous encounter or incident was, it was the same people and they were at the same location and witnessed the same things. This one's from June 30th, 2017 in Logan Square, specifically 2500 block of North Milwaukee Avenue. The sighting took place outside the Owl, which is described as a quirky late-night bar with a jukebox. The witness was a security person who was outside of the bar taking a break. The individual witnessed the bat-like humanoid flying over an empty lot across the street from the bar. So wasn't a whole lot of description on that one. Then we have a bit of a break, and our next sighting comes in July 20th, 2017. So just a few weeks ago. This is in Chicago, 5 p.m. Central Time, Lakeshore Drive and East Grand Avenue. The witness states, "We were driving down Lakeshore Drive toward North Avenue Beach in the car with my best friend, my sister, and my boyfriend. As we were approaching the curve near North Avenue Beach, we saw something fly out from underneath the bridge that goes over the street that separates that big black building in front of the Navy Pier, Lake Point Tower, and the beach. It flew straight up into the air and out toward the lake. This was not an owl, and it was not a seagull, or as seagulls are white in color. My boyfriend, who was in the front seat with me, was the first to see it and showed me, and everybody else saw it afterwards. It was freaky as explicative to see this thing fly up like that. It was like completely black and looked like a giant flying bat. It flew straight up and out of sight. I could not keep watching it as I was trying to drive and not get into a wreck. It was freaky to watch." So this is, we already seen this this is like the second time we've heard somebody say it flew out from under a bridge. It sounds like it's in the same area because I think that was close to the Navy Pier also. So this was too. This is additional information about this sighting. The reported sighting occurred on, as it said, July 20th, 2017, approximately 1700 hours, which is 5 p.m. That would be Central Time. We saw it fly out from under a bridge. It was flying very fast and was headed toward the lake. It was a large creature, solid black, and had wings. The driver was not able to give any details as she was driving to watch the entity and trying to watch the entity and avoid getting into an accident. The boyfriend was able to give a little more detail. He stated that the creature was solid black, had a pair of large wings that were the same color as the body. It flew out from under the bridge at a very high rate of speed and cleared the trees in a matter of 1 to 2 seconds as it headed out toward the lake. He did state that it was headed in the general direction of the pier and the water treatment plant. So there we hear about the water treatment plant yet again. This next one is July 24th, so just 4 days later, downtown Chicago. This is at Willis Tower in 233 South Watcher Drive. This was reported to Lon Strickler and posted on phantomsandmonsters.com. Eyewitness contacted Lon Strickler at Phantoms and Monsters about 2 hours after reportedly seeing the strange insect-like flying humanoid on Chicago's Willis Tower at approximately 5:10 p.m. Central Time on July 24th. And this is what Lon Strickler said. He said, I received a telephone call from the witness at 7:38 p.m. Eastern time, I guess his time, who states that he witnessed a flying human-like being at approximately 5:10 p.m. Central time. This was a time difference of approximately 1 hour and 18 minutes between the sighting and the call. The witness states he was attempting to calm down and then find somewhere to report the sighting. He found my phone number online and then called. He still seemed somewhat distressed when we talked. The witness states that he was outside the Franklin Tap on 325 South Franklin Street while smoking a cigarette. He was alone at the time, though there were many people walking along the sidewalk. He happened to look up towards Willis Tower at 233rd South Wacker, this is Wacker Drive, and noticed a human-like figure standing near the top of the building in a perched position. The being looked like a 6-foot-tall human with tall wings that extended a few feet above the body. As he watched, the being leaped off the building, stretched out its wings, dipped and swooped upwards. It gained altitude as it flapped its wings and headed off in a northern direction. The witness states the being's outstretched arms were not very large, maybe 6 to 8 feet from tip to tip, but were very jagged and insect-like, shaped similar to a moth. The being was also dark green in color and had a body form like that of a mantis. The legs seemed to be human-like and extended beyond the body while flying. He called it a human, insect, and bird mix that seemed to mutate while in flight. The witness tells me that he had not heard of any of the previous sightings and that other people he talked to were unaware of the sightings as well. I asked the witness to stay in touch. I have his contact information. Okay. So this one says it was more like a mantis. So this is a little bit different than the other sightings who claimed it was a humanoid or man-bat thing. This next one comes in July 27th, 2017. Was that same as the last one? No. It was 3 days later. July 27th, 2017. This was across from Harold Washington Library Center at 400 South State Street in Chicago. He says, or the witness says, I was leaving work at approximately 8:45 p.m. on Thursday night in the Loop. As I walked the 2 blocks to the nearest train station to go home, I saw a large bat-like creature that was perched on top of one of the streetlight poles across the street from the Harold Washington Library. This creature stood about 7 feet tall and was sitting there motionless. This creature had a pair of glowing red eyes that appeared to be fixated on something across the street. It stood there for about 6 seconds. That's when I saw a flash from a group of kids on the sidewalk as someone was taking a picture of this thing. It then spread open a large pair of wings, flapped them a couple of times, and took off into the air. The girls from that group of kids screamed, and they all took off running. I saw it as it shot up over the library and was gone in a matter of about 2 seconds. I was very shaken up by what I saw and talked to my pastor about it at the church on Saturday. It was he who pointed me in the direction of this site where I can make this a report. That's another typical, more like what the other sightings have stated. It's interesting that the pastor told him where to report it. For some reason that intrigues me. This one is 2 days later, July 29th, 2017, in Albany Park. Witness says, Hi, I saw that you were keeping a timeline of Batman sightings in Chicago. And he's got Batman in quotes. My friend and I just saw something in Albany Park / Lincoln Square about half an hour ago. So this was July 29th, about 10:30 p.m. Central Time, it says. And I'm not sure who to report it to. It was a huge black shape that appeared to be gliding high over the Wilson-Kimball area. We viewed it from my balcony about half a mile north of there. We observed it gliding for about 2 minutes before it was lost in the clouds, headed south. It looked somewhat like a bat, and that's what I thought it was at first. But it was just too big. It was hard to tell exactly how big from that distance, but I would guess about an 8-foot wingspan. We're pretty spooked by it. Let me know if you have any advice about who we should report this to. This says the witness, they drew a sketch of what they saw during the encounter, and it appeared to be somewhat of a backwards flying wing. It resembled a bat, basically, is what it looked like when I looked at it. And if you look for this date, just look for July 29, 2017, Albany Park sighting in Chicago. You can get it and find the encounter and the drawing that they provided when they reported this. This next one is August 2nd, 2017. This is in Bolingbrook, Illinois, specifically the Indian Boundary Park Playground. The witness claims the encounter took place in the playground area of Indian Boundary Park in Bolingbrook, Illinois, a southwest suburb of Chicago. The witness states that she has a normal routine of walking in the park at night. On Wednesday, August 2nd, 2017, at approximately 10:30 p.m. Central Time, the witness, who wishes to remain anonymous and report since she resides in a tight-knit community, was in the playground area of the park when she came upon a 7 to 8 foot tall being standing in the middle of the pathway. The witness initially thought that this was two people embracing, but was surprised at their height. She also noticed a sucking and slobbering sound coming from the being. She felt like she was being drawn to the being, as well as feeling a sense of foreboding. The witness grabbed her cell phone in order to capture a photo, but was shocked when the being slowly turned towards her. Overcome with fear, she quickly realized that this was not two people embracing, but a single tall, dark humanoid. The witness got the feeling that it somehow knew that she was going to take a photo and then reacted. She mentioned that she felt like she was being lured towards the humanoid. The being had exceptional broad shoulders and looked like it was wearing a thick black unknown material. The head was human-like, but quite small in size. She was within 15 feet of the being, but never noticed any eyes or facial features. There was enough moonlight available, so she was able to get an excellent look at this being. She immediately took another pathway in order to get away from the being, but soon started to experience intense weakness and fear. She had to sit and gather herself while keeping an eye out for the being. Eventually she got to her feet and quickly followed another path home. When the witness arrived at her home, she relayed the experience to her son, who recommended that they drive back to the park and see if the being was still there. As they approached, they drove around the location. Then the son noticed a large, dark shadow emerge from and stood up at a nearby bush. He stated that it peered at him, though he didn't see any eyes or face. He just knew that it was watching him and that he was overcome with an intense apprehension, then quickly headed home. They quickly headed home, When they arrived at home, they were both very scared and upset, not knowing what to do. Should they report the incident to the local authorities or remain quiet? Eventually, they went online and found my contact information. When I talked to the witness, she was shocked at the number of sightings in the Chicago metro area. She had no knowledge of any of the previous incidents. It was quite obvious that she was still very scared and was afraid that the being may know where she lives. This was also from Phantoms of Monsters. So I went on the Google Maps and I pulled up the park, and it's a decent sized park. It was set right in the middle of a residential area. It appeared to contain like small trees and shrubs, so it wasn't, like large forested area. More of a, residential park. So it's interesting. A couple things here that, you got the feeling that it was being lured. That it doesn't mention anything about glowing red eyes. I didn't witness anything like that. The spooky aspect of it, other than, thinking it's seeing this large 7 to 8 foot tall creature standing in the middle of the pathway, is the reference here where it says she noticed a sucking and slobbering sound coming from the being. Man, that would creep me out. I would be, man, I don't even know. And then go home and you're sort of like, oh, well, I think what we need to do is go back over there and see if we can find it. I'm like, nah. This thing's sucking and slobbering. Nah. It's sucking and slobbering for a reason. It's probably wanting to suck your brain out of your head or something. Pretty gross. So, no, that's not. Got a couple more here. This one doesn't have a date, so it's from August 2017, but I don't have a specific day. It's Melrose Park, Illinois, specifically 1254 Winston Plaza off Route 64 West North Avenue. The witness states, I was coming out of Best Buy with my husband when I saw this thing fly over top of us and headed to the west. It was flying very fast, and you could see its wings flapping as it flew away from us. I reached for my phone, but by the time I pulled it out and brought up the camera, it had moved farther away. I was able to take the one picture before it moved out of sight. From what I saw when it flew over, it must have been at least 6 feet tall and had wings that must have been at least 7 feet. It was black in color, but that was all I was able to see. I hope this photo helps, but I'm sure it's probably fuzzy. I'm not the greatest photographer in the world, and it was very hard to make any kind of heads or tails out of that photo. But you can search for a sighting. Like I said, there's no specific date, but that address, 1254 Winston Plaza off Route 64 West North Avenue, Melrose Park, Illinois, in August 2017. If you search for that, you can find the witness statement and the picture they provided. The most recent sighting I found, or reporting on here, is August 4th. So that's just 5 days ago, because I believe today's August 9th. So 5 days ago, River Forest, Illinois. It says River Forest, Illinois, Friday, August 4th, 2017, 5:30 p.m. Central Time. The witness says, I walked my 3 girls to the corner 7-Eleven after my oldest got out of soccer practice. We usually do this after each one has a practice as a little treat run before walking home. This day was overcast and quite a bit cooler than the previous days, which were very hot and muggy. After we got our slushies and other snacks, we proceeded to walk home along the usual route, which takes us past the practice fields at Dominican University. We were all talking and laughing when I spotted what looked like a giant bat flying just above the treetops at the corner of Division Street and William Street, where we crossed the road to head toward home. I showed it to my girls as the bat turned toward where we were standing. This sudden move scared my 5 and 7-year-old, who cowered down and screamed. The bat was flapping its wings and flew above us and over the football field. It then banked and flew off in a southwestern direction and disappeared over some treetops. We stood there for about 2 minutes, stunned, before I collected my girls, who were scared and sobbing, and I continued the rest of the way home. The bat looked like it had human-like arms and legs, just a lot bigger, and had a large pair of bat wings that it flapped as it flew. It was black with some gray, but there were no distinguishable features. I know what I saw was real and had to be a living creature. There was no sound, but it was a solid object. I asked each of my girls to describe what they saw, and they all agreed that it looked like a huge black bat. They were very scared, and I had to explain to them that we might have just seen a very big bat and there was nothing to be scared of. Yeah, I can only imagine little girls being that frightening them. I can't even conceive of that. That's just, it's got to be hard for a grown person to try to deal with a sighting or seeing something that's unexplainable like that. I can't imagine for young children to see something like that. I mean, it's got to bring nightmares, or just really scary, hard for them to process and deal with something like that. So, as you can see, whatever is going on in Chicago is no joke. There's some crazy stuff going on there. I thought it would be good to, spend some time to get through this, because I don't think people really realize, you don't hear anything about this in the national media. So, but it's very obvious something is going on. People are seeing something. A lot of people have, if you're not familiar with what happened with the Mothman sightings in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, a lot of people are saying that this is similar. And although there's no guarantee with what happened at Point Pleasant, but it was interesting that for a few months, I want to say it was like 8 months, 9 months, something like that, people had sightings and encounters with what they called the Mothman in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. And that was just prior to, I think it was with the Silver River Bridge or something like that, that collapsed up there, and a lot of people died. There was cars like driving across the bridge when it collapsed. And so, cultural, or I guess folklore, folktale state that the Mothman type creatures show up before a tragedy. So I don't know. People have speculated that, something's going to happen in Chicago because of these sightings. I don't know that. Nobody knows that. They're just basing that. Maybe there's more to it, but maybe they're just basing that off of what happened in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. I'm not really sure. I've not looked into the history of it, but I just know of the encounter in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, and I know what people say about it, and what I've heard some people, say about the sightings in Chicago. Regardless, people are seeing something, and a lot of cases it's very spooky, but it's very strange, and obviously nobody can explain this. Maybe there's somebody out there, maybe somebody knows what the secret is here, what this really is, but it's definitely fascinating, and something worth keeping tabs on here. We'll continue. We'll report on it as we hear more sightings, and if we hear anything interesting, we'll definitely be passing that information along as we go into more episodes. Keep you updated with what's going on, but it was just worthy of spending just a day. I know this is going to be a long episode, but it's worthy of people understanding. These encounters are all fascinating, and it's amazing how different people, different walks of life, different areas of Chicago. And if you just go out there and search for these sightings, there's a great website, singular4tn.com, I think it is where they have a map of all the sightings. They have it mapped out on Google Maps, and it's not like one central area. There's some distance between some of these sightings, so it's not like you just have one neighborhood and it's just some made up story that's just people are blowing out of proportion. There's some legitimacy to it because it's different people, different areas, different neighborhoods, all over north, south, east, west Chicago. And like I said, we got law enforcement officers that have witnessed at least 3, 2 that will speak about it. The other one doesn't want to speak about it. So we got journalists, you got teenagers, you got girls looking for Pokemons, lots of different people. So something to it, and something to keep your wits about you. And it's a good, just this story here and all these incidents is a good reason why you should definitely, keep your eyes peeled when you're out, because you never know. It doesn't matter if you're in the woods, you're in the city. Keep your eyes peeled. You never know what you're going to get, what you're going to witness, what you're going to see. And there's lots of things in this world that we just can't explain. We just don't know enough. We don't know enough about our universe to be able to explain everything that's out there. So this is just another example. So anyways, we're glad you guys listened and you were able to join us. Sorry for a long episode, but did give you a little bit of break in between. So anyways, was a good episode. Fun one for me. Hopefully next week Harrison will be back with us. He'll quit all this goofing off and get back to business. And let's see. If you you keep checking us out. If you have an encounter, if you've seen anything like this, what's happening in Chicago, if we have anybody listening from that area that's witnessed anything or knows somebody that would like to talk about it, please send them our way. They can reach us at unexplained.reality@yahoo.com, and we can set something up. I'd love to give them on the phone if they can, even if they don't want to be on the show. If they would be willing to talk to me, so I can just write down some notes. So it can be totally anonymous. And it doesn't have to be just this. Anything. Any story, any encounter, anything you want to talk, experience. I don't care how crazy it is. We're not in the business of figuring out people are making stuff up crazy, or having, we're not going to call you out as being crazy if it's something we don't understand. That's what I'm trying to say. So, if you have an experience, an encounter, story, hit us up, unexplained.reality@yahoo.com. We'd love to talk to you, and we'll handle it however you want. Totally anonymous. If you just want to tell us a story, you want to be on the show, however you want to do it. We're on Facebook. Come join the group, Unexplained Reality. Just hit a request there to join, and we'll get you. I'll get notified of it, and we'll add you right in. Let's see. We're on Twitter, Instagram. In our show notes here, you can see the links for those, or the IDs. But if you just look up Unexplained Reality, you should be able to find us on any of those. We're on YouTube, so all our shows get uploaded to YouTube. If you prefer to listen on YouTube, come find us. I do ask one thing. Wherever you're listening to us, especially if you're listening at iTunes, please rate us. Please review us. Just, click the stars. Give us something, because it helps out. You would not understand how much it helps out. If you don't have any experience with podcasting or anything like that, every person that chooses a star or rates us, reviews us, that bumps us up. It makes us more visible to more people. It gets more people listening. Hopefully it will lead to more stories, more incidents, more encounters that people are willing to share with us. And that's what we want. See if I miss anything. If you want to donate to the show, we have Patreon and we have PayPal. Just search for us on Patreon, PayPal. Just use unexplained.reality@yahoo.com. And every bit helps. Just helps to go pay our costs for bringing the show out to you guys. And I guess that's going to be a wrap for tonight. We'll let Ricky Young take us away. So check him out, Ricky Young Music, at rickyyoung.com. You can find him on iTunes and wherever you buy your music from. It's great guy, and does some great music. So last but not least, want to thank our favorite podcast for sparking our interest and getting us down this path. Sasquatch Chronicles, Saswhat, Into the Fray Radio, The Graylian Report, Mysterious Universe, Cryptid Factor, which is just a hilarious show. Love that show. Somewhere in the Skies, Monsters Among Us, The Confessionals. Feel like I'm missing something. Okay Talk. I believe it said The Graylian Report. I think that's it. So check those guys out. Obviously, if you're listening to us, you definitely should be listening to those. And check out the Cryptid Crate. As Derek Hayes with Monsters Among Us has a box subscription for people who love cryptids. So you're hearing our commercials in these episodes. So go check them out, cryptocrate.com. That's good stuff. Anyways, we'll check you guys next week. I hope everybody has a good week, and we'll talk to you later. See ya.
The doctors say she's gonna make it, but she's never gonna walk again. She did PT every day, prayed every night with friends. And on her 12-month checkup, the doctor came walking in. She stood up from that wheelchair and walked up to him. She said you gotta know when a stumbling block, it's just a stepping stone. Sometimes you gotta roll with the punches and throw a couple punches of your own. If you don't start living, life will pass right by you. 'Cause life ain't about waiting for the storm to pass through. It's about learning to dance in the rain. Special force of the Navy SEALs. When the order came calling in, he thinks of the towers and all the lives that were taken by the man staring back at him. And as the gunshots rang out, he screamed, this is for the USA, and for 9/11, and for all the heartache. He says you gotta know when a stumbling block, it's just a stepping stone. Sometimes you gotta roll with the punches and throw a couple punches of your own. If you don't start living, life will pass right by you. 'Cause life ain't about waiting for the storm to pass through. It's about learning to dance in the rain. In our lives we are all faced with adversity. Don't be scared of those storms and start dancing in the rain. Sometimes you gotta know when a roadblock is just another fork in the road. You gotta know when a heartbreak is another thorn on the rose. If we don't start living, life will pass me and you. 'Cause life ain't about waiting for the storm to pass through. We can follow the brave ones before us who have broke through, who learned to dance in the rain. Oh yeah, we gotta learn to dance in the rain. Oh yeah.
You still there? Alright then. This has been an Unexplained reality production. Alright.